Hey, this is Pamela Riemann-Schneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review, and I'm back in my office. Back with my own coffee cup, my own coffee, which is great, but...
And your little dog, too.
And my little dog, too, Chewy. But I've had a couple of really great weeks of travel, and there was a feeling I felt like, especially at the Organic Produce Summit, of everyone getting their last dance in before they shut the lights out. And it kind of seemed like that came true shortly after the Produce Reporter went out on Friday last week. We got a word that, yes, the Produce Marketing Association is canceling Fresh Summit in October. We have some thoughts. Greg, what do you think?
I was afraid that it would get canceled because of pandemic reasons, and that's not the reason it got canceled. There are some issues in New Orleans with COVID and rates and passports at restaurants and indoor facilities, and that was always going to be a little bit of a problem. But they had a hurricane, and that's just terrible luck because, as we've both pointed out in our coverage this week, this is the third consecutive week that the produce industry had an event. And it was a regional event. It started 2 weeks ago with the SCPC in Savannah, which you were at. Then it went to Organic Produce Show in Monterey, which you attended. And then Washington Conference was this week. Not to mention, there are two huge grocery shows going on right now in Las Vegas with Grocery Shop and NGA. And NGA is one that I've gone to, we've both gone to. I went to it 2 years ago, right before the pandemic started in San Diego. And it had been a decent event for produce, but this year, basically there were no produce exhibitors. So that's one of the main reasons why we didn't attend it. We certainly could have. We kind of felt like this might happen to Fresh Summit. So now the question is, how does the industry respond? And I know you talked to people in Monterey and they had some ideas.
Yeah. This is, this kind of is a bummer, and it is completely just dumb luck that not only one, but two tropical storms go through New Orleans, direct hits. So we got unhoused people. And so obviously we couldn't go to New Orleans. The optics of that are terrible, with people not even able to live in their houses and restaurants closed down because of infrastructure issues. We can't bring 20,000 people into the middle of that. So it was the right decision to cancel PMA, as much of a bummer as it is. But I really feel like people were talking about this, that it's bringing momentum to regional shows and the smaller shows, nimble shows. I mean, you can't pick up and move a PMA 6 weeks out, but could you pick up and move a different show? That maybe has less of a financial commitment to the hotel community and things like that. It's possible, but it's also smaller gatherings had been gaining momentum for a long time in the produce industry. So a lot of people did point it out to me that, maybe the smaller shows are going to be more important going into the future. But I still feel like the produce industry absolutely needs that big show. We need a get together, a state of the industry. We need, a convention. It was absolutely bad luck, poor timing to have it here in New Orleans this year. And hopefully we can pick up and figure out something for next year.
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk with PMA since it happened, but I wonder if they'll ramp up some regional events themselves, or I guess segment specific. I mean, I went to the food service in July, and that was right when everything opened back up. We had like that 6-week window in the country where everyone said, hey, you don't need masks anymore. Basically, as soon as I got off an airplane and out of cab or Uber, I didn't have a mask back on the entire time. And this is in California. And it was very freeing, and it was important for everyone to get together. I know a lot of people, especially on the West Coast, had not really been to anything, and that was a cool thing. And so, there's an opportunity to do other kinds of events, and I wonder if they're going to do that. One of the things that really got me thinking about the other impacts of this cancellation was there's the weekly town hall webinar by PMA, and it was on career pathways. And it tells the story of the students who were brought into this program to learn from the industry, consider the produce industry when they really hadn't before, both people with ag backgrounds and without. As several speakers pointed out, if you have a 4-H background, you don't even consider that the produce industry is totally a good fit for that. I mean, they think about ranching and big program crops and big ag, and produce is a great fit. And there's so many different levels that people can get into as a profession. And one of the horrible things about this is this second straight year, which the industry cannot bring students and expose them to both the industry and the people in the industry. As we know, that's what attracts a lot of people to the industry and keeps them in it. Not only the job duties, which change all the time because of the perishable nature of the industry, but also the people in it. And it is different than many other industries, and they don't get to see that. And I feel bad for him. One of the speakers is a professor from Arizona State at the Agribusiness School. And she said she's talking to students, and students are really nervous because they're not getting face-to-face interactions with anyone professionally. And that sucks for a generation of people getting out of school, and it's bad for the industry. And on top of this, we have a labor problem. It's like, surely we have to be able to connect some dots here. One of my suggestions is figuring out a way to get these students to all these regional events.
Yeah, I mean, they just did have the Women's Fresh Perspective, like you mentioned. This could spawn more of the regional type events. I've been to the PMA's, the retail show. What is that? Retail Connections. It's been so long that I can't remember the exact name. That was in Philadelphia, the two that I went to. And I know that they've had those regional connection shows in other countries as well. But just hosting some regional events, getting people together, getting these student things. I know that I've been involved with various industry organizations, including the Dallas Fresh Produce Association, or Fresh Food Association, and the Houston Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Association. And some of the core strategies for those organizations is attracting talent. So it is really important for those of us in the produce industry to be continuing to reach out to do these. And I know Danelle in Dallas and her organization at DMA does a whole lot with the schools here in Texas to attract talent to the produce industry. So we have to keep beating that drum to keep people's attention on it. I really have to wonder how the other regional show operators, I mean, New England Produce Council is next week. I wonder how many last minute tickets to Washington, D.C. were purchased over the weekend for people who really value the in-person connection and want it. Because I know everyone at the Organic Produce Summit, I don't know a single person who said that was a bad show. The buyers were there at that show, and that just showed that they will show up when the environment is right and the time is right and the location is right. And is a smaller event going to attract those buyers? Perhaps, I don't know. I know on the Driscoll's tour, a lot of the folks that were hosting said, we haven't had people in the field in so long that we didn't know how many to expect. It was sold out. It was a huge crowd. The retailers that were on the tour were enthusiastic, ecstatic to be back in the field with boots on the ground. So there is a tremendous pent-up demand for in-person connections.
Well, before we wrap this up, I did want to ask you about something you covered at the organic show. And we know a challenge at these events is coming up with new products to attract attention to exhibitors' booths. And I wondered if you might be able to dig a little more into the trend that you've found toward more sustainable packaging.
Right. So everyone wants to have something new to show off in their booth because the buyer comes by what's new. We have the same thing we've been growing. The cycle of growing does not go that fast. So to have something new to show, usually it's some kind of new pack. And an organic show, obviously, this is going to be a more eco-friendly pack. And I saw many. I took a picture of quite a few of them, but a lot of shippers are starting to offer an option for either fiber-based corrugated, some kind of compostable package that's not the industrial compostable plastic, more of the home compostable, the compost you think of when you relate it to organics. But I did talk to other people because I'm like, are we really going to go here? Is this what's going to happen? Because it's got some issues. Compostable packaging, of course, has come leaps and bounds from what it was back in the little green strawberry clamshell era back in the day, where they put the film and the rubber band over the basically mush strawberry package. Packaging companies have developed a lot of new things where we've even got top seal compliant. We've got completely corrugated clamshells that hold their shape but are also compostable, but they also cost a lot of money.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue is you have the two biggest things holding it back are cost and then is it going to be as good as plastic?
Yeah, and they're getting almost as good as plastic on the shelf life thing. I've even seen several options at retailers, but it's retailers like Central Market and Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. But you know what? When you look at the cold case in Trader Joe's, there's still a whole lot of plastic in there. So I think and someone, a very wise marketer, told, he gave me the idea of the consumer demand for sustainable packaging is a lot like a tsunami right now, that the water has receded from the beach. And we need to be ready because while the pandemic was raging, people were more worried about in stocks, they were more worried about safety, they were more worried about a sealed, clean container than they were worried about throwing away that plastic. And now, like as it's receding, the whoosh is going to come and people are going to start railing about plastic again. And we have to be ready with solutions, whether that solution is more recyclable, which we saw a press release from Stepack today or this week for a strawberry clamshell that is more recyclable, or does it have to be compostable or made out of something that is a little friendlier for the environment? A lot of questions, but I see retailers trialing it and they're going to know what consumers think going over the next probably 6 months to a year to see if we're going to see widespread adoption.
Well, I'm glad we're getting away from some of the silly pandemic related food safety ridiculousness and back to more serious issues. And this sustainability is one of them.
Yeah, sustainability is one of them. Washing your oranges in your kitchen sink is not one of them.
No, and leaving them in your garage overnight.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for the week in review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up. All right.